by talking about the hormone products, and then we can go over to the grapefruit oil, and then I saw some questions about use in kids, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to share my screen with you because when we talk hormones, it doesn't make any sense unless you can actually see it. So let's see. I want you to see this guy. Okay. All right. So I will go ahead and just forewarn you. I am not the absolute greatest in the world at this hormone business. And so what I have chosen to do to help orient me and help me study better is break down steroid synthesis. So ignore all of the structures. The structures aren't important. Pay attention to the colors that are on this, this picture. So what we see in the yellow is all of our progestins. So these are our progesterones, being the one that everybody really knows about more. So we have our progestins over here in the yellow. We have our androgens, with testosterone being the one that most people are the most familiar with. And then we have our estrogens, with estradiol is the most common. Most people just lump all of these and call them all estrogens. And then up here we have cortisol, which is our only glucocorticoid, which is our stress hormone. And then you have your mineralocorticoids up top, which govern water balance in the body. So if we look at Young Living's products like Femigen, like PD8020, etc., they contain a few ingredients that are on this chain. For one, you have pregnenolone. So all steroids in your body originate from cholesterol. Cholesterol is like your great-grandfather. Pregnenolone is like your grandmother. That's the starting point of really all steroid synthesis, because cholesterol can do lots and lots of other things in the body. Some of them good, like building cell membranes, and some of them bad, like all sticking together and clogging up your arteries. So we have pregnenolone, and we have several products that have pregnenolone in them. And then we also have DHEA, which is found in several of Young Living's products, which is sort of like the parent of the androgens. So it's the most direct path from pregnenolone down into the androgens. You can go through progesterone, through some other things, but you're never going to end up back with your DHEA. You're going to be shunted over towards testosterone, because these processes don't necessarily go both ways. They drive towards an end product. The other thing that we will see in some of Young Living's products are the natural plant-based progesterones, which are found in the US formulation of Progessence Plus. So if you want to support the system from this level, you can do this here. So now that we've oriented to these different classes, let's take a look at a more simple diagram. And let's look at this, and let me move this so I can see. So here we have our cholesterol or pregnenolone, progesterone, and then we have our DHEA, and then I gotta minimize this. Over here, we have our estrone, our estradiols, as well as some more potent versions of testosterone. So if you are selecting a Young Living product to help support your optimal endocrine balance, you can look at which part of the system are you looking to impact. Because if you are looking to decrease the amount of cortisol in your body, you might not want to give precursors. You might want to give things that balance it out. The complicated thing about supporting hormones is that it is up to your body's own enzymatic processes which direction of all of these directions that you go. However, if you are specifically looking to support either testosterone, estradiol, this part of the system, as you can see, supplementing with DHEA doesn't really give you that many pathways except directly towards this part of the system. So, I encourage you, you can go and watch my video about the roles of progesterone in the body and how things move through this system. And then it just becomes a matter of picking which part of the system are you looking to balance. Do you want to start up at the very top and then leave it up to your body's chemistry? Well, then you might want to do something like the Prenolone Plus that contains pregnenolone. Or you might want to do something like progesterone within getting the wild yam progesterone in Progessence Plus. Or you could go to something like PD 80/20, Femigen, Endogize, etc., that has these levels of DHEA. So unfortunately, this system is so complicated that it's very hard for me without knowing exactly an individual's laboratory values, which one might be of the most assistance. However, I do encourage you, if you are someone that has gone in to get a full steroid panel where they measure your estrogen, your estradiol, your estriol, estrones, DHEA, DHT, testosterone, all of those. You can get all of those in a steroid panel. You can measure most of these things that are in red throughout the body, as well as certainly you can measure testosterone and many of these other levels for the intermediate products that don't just get eliminated very quickly. If you look at that and then assess it with either whoever your healthcare provider is, sit down, talk to them. And if you say, all right, I have really high levels of cortisol, find out from an endocrine specialist or from even, there are so many Young Living members who even know more about this than I do. Every time I'm in different meetings, I ask to find out who is the endocrine specialist so that I can learn more and more. But this has been the way that I have made sense of this in my head. These are not my graphics. You can just go onto Google. All of these graphics are there. Just look up steroid synthesis and it will all come right up. So if you talk to a specialist and who's better versed at this, because the reason I'm not great at this is because you have to know how quickly, you have to know how quickly each of these enzymatic conversion steps happen in comparison to each other to ultimately decide, okay, if I put in more progesterone, I'm going to end up generating more of the products that I want, or I'm going to end up not converting this and actually using it as pure progesterone. So I know that's not a great answer, but it is one of the ways that I have found to at least be able to organize this in my head. And then let me pull up some slides. Any questions? I know any questions I can answer about that so far. Just put them on the chat, and as soon as I stop sharing my screen, I'll take a look at them. Let's see, presentations. This was in convention 2016, and this one. Okay, so let's talk about, let's talk about grapefruit and, no, sorry guys, I am an hour late.
Lindsay, you have one question down here.
What does it say?
It says, what dietary enzymes best support these pathways?
So remember that dietary enzymes are meant to digest food. And so I guess theoretically you could think about the nucleases, which are the nucleic acid breakdowns, but these aren't necessarily enzymes, to my knowledge, that you can support in the same way that you can support breakdown of foods, because like proteases are going to break down your proteins, lipases are going to break down your fats, amylases and things are going to break down your starches, but it's not necessarily the same thing. So I guess, all right, now that I'm thinking about this more, given that all of these are steroids, given that all of these are very fatty substances, to the best of my understanding, if you were going to choose a dietary enzyme, choose one that has a lot of lipase. So if you wanted to think about Young Living's products with lipases, they all have lipases, but Essential Zymes, which is your dual layer pressed tablet or caplet, is the only one that has pancreolipase, which allows you to break down more complex fats and really does a lot more with fats. So you might consider taking that one. But I'm certainly not making a claim of any sort that it can support this system, simply because I don't know that, and then, you know, it's not labeled to do that. But to the best of my, let me just work this out off of the top of my head, I would say a lipase, and you could consider doing the pancreolipase that's in Essential Zymes. So, all right, I found this other slide deck. So let's talk through grapefruit oils and medications. So let's see, here we go. So grapefruit oils and medications, this is one of, it makes me want to like bang my head against my desk every time I hear a physician or a pharmacist say you can never take grapefruit oil with medications, because it shows a lack of understanding of the chemistry that we're talking about. So let's first think about how does the body metabolize drugs and foreign substances of all sorts. So the liver is your metabolic powerhouse. It really breaks down a lot in the body. So your liver has hundreds, if not thousands, of metabolizing enzymes. Those functions of those enzymes vary based on race, based on genetics, based on age, based on liver function, as well as diet and foods that are consumed. So why is it contraindicated to use grapefruit juice with a wide variety of medications? Well, grapefruit juice inhibits a very important one of these enzymes called CYP3A4. And CYP3A4 is one of the most critical enzymes that we have for breaking down drugs. And so if you inhibit CYP3A4, your drug levels increase and the risk of harm from that medication also increases. So this is important. We also know that here's the difference. If we think about what is the difference between grapefruit oil and grapefruit juice, so grapefruit juice contains a wide variety of drug metabolizing enzyme inhibitors. The most potent inhibitor of this is called 6,7-DHB. DHB is found in high concentration in grapefruit juice, but not in grapefruit oil. Now, the B in DHB stands for bergeptins. It's a class of similarly shaped molecules. So bergeptins, bergamins, bergamomatins are a lot of the compounds that give the citrus oils their aromas. And these bergamomatins, it's important to differentiate between which ones are distilled out into the oils and which ones are not. So 6,7-DHB is not found in high concentration in the oil. However, there are other bergeptins and bergamomatins, etc., that can mildly inhibit enzymes. So it's not to say that grapefruit juice is 100% free from a risk, but it does mean that the risk is so much lower. Many authors have deemed it to be not clinically significant, meaning that it doesn't impact drug levels enough to even worry about. My advice to you as a pharmacist is know the side effects of your medicines. If you are someone, or if you know someone who takes a medication that interacts with grapefruit juice, be sure that they know the signs and symptoms of toxicity. Because even if they choose not to use grapefruit oil or grapefruit juice, it's still good knowledge for them to have. And if they choose to use grapefruit oil, it's also important for them to know. In my personal opinion, in my professional opinion, the greatest risk would theoretically arise from taking lots of grapefruit oil by mouth. I do not see how theoretically using grapefruit in a bath bomb or something like that would carry the same risk. So that is the science behind it. Let me see if I have any other slides about this. Nope, that's it that I've got on that. Let's see. Oh, sorry guys. I didn't realize I wasn't exactly sharing my screen. So I'll stop my sharing. Okay, let me go back to all of the questions that you guys sent me, and let's figure out what we can answer. Doctor says no aspirin because a member is on blood thinners. Does that contradict wintergreen and Panaway? Same answer here. Know the signs and symptoms of toxicity of your medications. So in my personal professional opinion, and if for any other healthcare professionals on the call, this is just my opinion. You don't have to take it as your own. If you know the signs and symptoms of bleeding and the signs and symptoms of blood clots, both of which are very important to know when you're on blood thinners, in my opinion, you can safely use small amounts of wintergreen and Panaway or any of the other wintergreen containing oils. Now, wintergreen is 95% plus methyl salicylate, which is a compound similar but distinctly different from aspirin. If you see signs such as bruising, bleeding of the gums, those can be very early warning signs. And so if that happens, stop using the oil in combination with your medications and follow up with your healthcare provider who manages your anticoagulation. So, and again, same thing. Theoretically, the risk is going to be higher using any of the oils by mouth. Neither wintergreen or Panaway are labeled as a Vitality or a Plus oil because there is that theoretical risk. I will be forthright with you and say, yeah, people have bled from using wintergreen essential oil. However, it's important when you're looking at data related to drug interactions as well as adverse effects from essential oils that you look at the dose, because some of these doses are ridiculous. They really, really are over the top, not a dose that anyone who is not either very unfortunately uninformed or looking to do themselves harm would ingest at one particular point in time. Even that said, there have been many, many case reports of people ingesting even upwards of 30 and 40 milliliters of oil and not suffering harm. So I don't advocate for that. In fact, I advocate very strongly against that. But I do think that there is some room to wiggle a little bit when it comes to using wintergreen containing oils alongside blood thinners. The important thing is to be an empowered inhabitant of your own body. If your body is telling you, stop taking that supplement or use more of that oil, pay attention to that. If you are on blood thinners and you start using wintergreen and all of a sudden you've got blood in your urine, put 2 and 2 together and be an empowered inhabitant of your own body and be an empowered advocate for your own health as you are working with different healthcare providers, because there's a lot of fear mongering out there and there's a lot of absolutes out there. I see a lot of articles online that say never and always. And I encourage you, don't say never, because as soon as you say, oh, that never happens, it will happen to someone in your downline or someone that you know. And as soon as you say that never happens, it will absolutely happen. So I just encourage you, know the signs and symptoms, know the adverse effects of your medicines, know how to look out for those adverse effects, and then pay attention to your body as you're using essential oils and using supplements. So the grapefruit oil question is such an easy one, and my constant answer to anything related to medications is know your adverse effects, know your dose, know what interacts with it, and speak up to yourself at the earliest sign that something might be going wrong. So that's my biggest advice for that. I am going to force myself to learn more. I'm looking at all of these questions that you guys have about hormones, and I'm going to force myself to get better on these. Questions I get, what's the best oil for the certain time of life? Scanned for dragon time. So it depends. I can tell you personally how I use oils, and I can tell you physiologically what happens to your hormone levels over time. So as we are, I'm going to need to look up a chart so this makes sense to y'all. So when we're young, we first inherit hormones from our mom, which is why, little baby boys kind of stand up a little straight sometimes. It's because all that testosterone that mom gave them is coming through their body. Then we have a relative drop in our levels of hormones that then surge as we go into puberty. And then hormone levels throughout the menstrual cycle in women are quite complicated. I could show them to you, but I don't think it's exactly the best thing to do. During pregnancy, we have a huge surge in our amount of progesterone, because progesterone is the hormone of pregnancy. Menstruation in younger women occurs or in all women, because of the decrease in the amount of progesterone that then tells the lining of your uterus, nope, not going to be ready to receive a baby now. And then all of the lining of the uterus falls away. Then as women go through menopause, both levels of progesterones and estrogens both plummet. So it is reasonable to think that you might, if you are an older woman, test for some of the oils that do contain some of those compounds that are known phytoestrogens. So there are many compounds in essential oils that mimic natural estrogens in our body. And so we can supplement with either progesterone or estrogens throughout life. So here's the thing. I don't love this chart because it's a little bit simplistic in my opinion, but I'm going to show it to you anyways because I think it makes sense. I need a new slide. Okay, so what we have here is, I'm going to share my screen again. If I can, share screen. There we go. All right, this is a very simplistic diagram of what happens during, this is the life cycle of a woman who is going through hormonal changes. So as we see, when we're babies and little children, we don't have many hormones. But as we get into our teenage years and through puberty, estrogen and progesterone both start to rise. Here's the interesting part. When we reach the time around menopause, progesterone levels start to slowly taper off over time. This can lead to some of the sadness. This can lead to some of the initial emotional issues surrounding menopause. But then it's when the estrogen levels very rapidly start increasing and decreasing. This is what leads to the hot flashes, the sweats, all of that. So in traditional, I wouldn't call it traditional Western medicine, in older practices of medicine, it was said to use estrogen supplementation to help prevent all of this from happening. But what we found was, unfortunately, that increases the risk of breast cancer, the risk of stroke, and a risk of a lot of other bad things, cardiovascular disease, etc. However, if you're someone who is beginning this slow decline, you may consider using something like a Progessence Plus, which has naturally occurring wild yam extract that allows you to naturally support the progesterone system. If you are someone who is actively going through the waking up in the middle of the night, the sweats and the mood swings, etc., throughout menopause, you might consider adding in some of the oils with more of the phytoestrogens, like the sclariols, such as clary sage. And again, I am talking purely from the chemistry. So I'm telling you about sclariol. I'm not necessarily recommending another product or another. But I do have confidence that talking about naturally occurring progesterone and naturally occurring phytoestrogens can potentially help to impact this system. So again, once you know where you are in the system, that's when you can start to give that support. Also, I see a lot of women using naturally occurring progesterones throughout pregnancy. Honestly, in my opinion, you can save that money throughout that time because your progesterone levels are naturally going to be so very high throughout the entire time. So that is my advice for supporting the change of life and different areas throughout life so that you can stay nice and healthy and feeling good about what you're putting onto your skin, etc. So, all right, I got a question. Are the wild supplements in vegetarian capsules? Not all of them. The products that are straight essential oils, like longevity, like sleep essence, where there's no herbs in it, those are really hard to get into a capsule so that the capsule doesn't erode. And so those are not vegetarian capsules, but the vegetable cellulose caps that we sell as fillables, those are vegetarian. And most of our products, most of our supplements that are not straight oils are vegetarian, just cellulose capsules. So great question. I saw a question earlier about Agile Ease, and I absolutely love Agile Ease as an addition to the Young Living family. Agile Ease is a great one to give to people who are looking to support optimal fitness. If you haven't seen my Facebook Live on supplements and sustainable organizations, I encourage you to go check it out. It's over on my YouTube channel. I encourage you to check it out because I'm starting this, what I think is a pretty cool thought process of really how to break down all of Young Living supplements into categories so that they make sense when you're sharing. You can also, if you'd like to know more about hormone supplementation, there is a video called The Ghosts of Young Living, and that has the most in-depth analysis I have of our supplement Estro. I have to pull up all my notes, which I don't want to do at this moment since we've talked so much about hormones, but you're more than welcome to go listen to that video as well. So if you know someone who is really into fitness and really wants to take their fitness routine to the next level, Agiles is a perfect addition because it supports both joint and cartilage health. It gives frankincense resin powder. Cool thing from a seed to seal perspective is that all of that frankincense resin powder is from our farm, as is all of the Northern Lights black spruce that's in it. It also contains type 2 collagen. And the type 2 collagen that is in this product is different than the type 2 collagen that was found within BLM. The cool thing about the collagen in Agiles is that it is undenatured. What that means is that collagen is a molecule that's like tight and very wound around each other. When you denature it, you pull it into a straight line. And that makes it more challenging to interact with your body in the same way as that like gnarled bunch of collagen would. Undenatured collagen is nice and twisted and all pulled together so that you can make maximal use of it in your body. The other cool thing is that the collagen, so this is not a vegetarian product. I will go ahead and say that. So the collagen comes from the same source, but it hasn't been, which is chicken sternum. And so you can still recommend it if you have friends that are Muslim or Hindu or kosher, because it does come from a chicken source instead of a pork or a beef. But it hasn't been exposed to heat, and so it is still in that nice gnarled up sense. So the other cool ingredients in Agiles are calcium fructoborate. So this is a special salt that not only gives you calcium, but also gives you boron, which is a very small mineral that supports many different enzymatic processes as well as many different systems throughout your body. So I'll leave it to you to do some more research about boron, but this was specially designed and the boron was added in because of the benefits to joint health. Other good thing about Agiles is that it can support the body's response to inflammation in healthy individuals. So you're getting a lot of great support, and it's a great one to add on, especially in January. I could see many of you doing pushes for Sleek, for Agiles in January when everybody is ready to start working off all that holiday weight. So I'm going to take a look at another question now. I am very sorry, Mara. I know absolutely nothing about Young Living products and a ketogenic diet other than you're going to want to avoid all the ones with carbs, which is basically all of our food products. They all have carbs in them, and they all have proteins in them. So unfortunately, not a lot of great support there, and I know absolutely nothing about the interactions between essential oils and the ketogenic diet. So, oh, this is a great question. I'd love to hear about the UK market and the best ways to share with people there. Yeah, it's real different sharing with people over here. Whereas when I'm in the States, we do a lot of games. We love to like interact with each other. We love, I just finished reading Daniel Pink's To Sell is Human, and he gave so many different games that you can play to train yourself to be persuasive, convincing, and influential, because he makes the case that everybody's in sales. I mean, I had to sell Becky on inviting me tonight. Like she had to sell all of you to show up. She had to sell all of you that I really was late for my plane and was like struggling to get home. All of those things are sales. You sell your husband on mowing the lawn, your children on eating broccoli. So don't think of being in business with Young Living as like, shame, I'm in sales. This isn't Cersei walking down in the middle of Game of Thrones. There's no shame in this game because all of us are in sales. So anyways, in the US, I do loads of games like that. We love dance-offs. We love getting loud. We love clapping. Yeah, in the States, it's kind of like, in Europe, it's a much more subdued audience. I have to be prepared for challenges from the audience as well. I also have to be prepared with my own knowledge and understanding to say, no, I disagree with you, and this is my professional reason why. So if you are choosing to come to Europe and build a business, my number one piece of advice for you is build trust within a small community. Be it trust within a service organization, a church, your neighborhood. Even if you just go shopping at the same grocery store each and every time and you befriend that shop owner, that's very important because trust is really important, especially in Britain where people are so cheap. It's unbelievable. You would think asking somebody to buy a $150 starter kit was like you asked them to buy you first class airfare to Hong Kong. It's crazy. I've had dozens of people come over to my house and sit and smell oils for hours and sit next to the diffusers like mesmerized. And then my boyfriend will be like, hey, you can buy a kit for me. And he's like, you can get one for 150 pounds. And they're like, what? Americans are much more likely to say like, sure, I'll try a kit. What's in it? Brits are going to want to try that one oil that costs like $11 and then they're going to want to keep it for 6 years. And so it's completely different. So number one, establish trust. Number one, establish trust within your neighborhood. Number two, share how to use products because people in Europe are still really, really wedded to disease claims. And I really have tried hard to break them out of it. And even last night, I had somebody that just stood and begged me to give them disease state answers. And I'm just like, I can't do it. And I don't want to because my rationale for that is if you teach people how to use oils and to use supplements, they use them. If you teach them that peppermint is just the oil that you rub on your stomach every time after a meal, they do that. Versus if you say, if you have heartburn or if you have this or if you have that, they wait. They wait until they have that wrong with them to use it. So I don't like that. I want people to be using our products every day because I know what a difference they can make. So establishing trust, focus on a few products that you can learn and study and know really, really well. Because especially if any of you are considering going over to Germany, Austria, they're going to want to know, what does the package weigh? They're going to ask you like totally the most specific detailed questions. What is the origin of this herb versus that one? So focus on just a few products that you love, that you use, and that you can go very deep into information. Because whereas Americans, we just want to try it all. We want to have fun. We want to experiment. We want to make our own things. Europeans want to know that the product that they're giving is trustworthy. The other thing that you can do in Europe is really emphasize the history of Young Living, because members in Europe want to know that they are signing up with a company that's going to be around for a long time. So focusing on our 22-year history, focusing on our seed to seal process, inviting people to farms, etc., have been the best ways I have found. Also, make fun of yourself for being an American in a foreign land. It works because it breaks the tension. I don't know any foreign languages, but I'm a really good parrot. So if I am presenting and I hear my translator say a word that then I can say again, I will say it over and over again. Learn how to say please and thank you in every language where you go. And then don't ever be afraid to say, I'm sorry, I don't understand. So those are my biggest pieces of advice that I've learned. Yeah. And then if today is any indication, just go with the flow. Go with the flow. Laura, I feel you, sister, that if your mom is German, that's why. Sit for like 6 hours and describe to her like all of the science and use a bunch of big words, and she'll be like, oh goodness, wow, that is impressive. I do need that. Germans are super, super skeptical. So, and they only give you one shot. And if you ruin it, they're not going to trust you for like 17 more years. That's when every IT implementation goes wrong, and Germans, oh gosh, it's not good. So, all right, breastfeeding. So let's talk kids, pregnancy, breastfeeding. All right. I have the same answer basically to all of these questions is you are an empowered inhabitant of your own body. Every time somebody asks me, can I take this supplement while I'm pregnant? I'm like, I don't know. I'm not pregnant. Like, I know what I would do. And as a professional, there are certain products that I would recommend against. Things that contain cascara, like Rahemagen and Comfortone. Anything that is intended to stimulate the bowels, stimulate cleansing, like ICP. The last thing that you want when you're 7.5 months pregnant is unexpected downward and outward pressure. And things like cascara that are meant to cleanse the bowels can provide that. As far as essential oils, I have seen no overwhelmingly convincing evidence that any essential oil is dangerous in every single woman. This includes rue essential oil. Rue is an oil that gets a really bad rap on the internet. In my opinion, if I were pregnant, I have been using Rutavala for a number of years. I feel confident that I would use it. If you choose not to, it's fine by me. The reason that I feel confident that I personally would choose to use it is studies that I have read do not convince me that rue, the oil, is the same as rue, the plant. Rue, the plant, contains an ingredient that I can't remember the name of it now, but it's a cholinergic agent. So it increases the amount of lubrication in the body. And this has been demonstrated to be an abortifacient, to induce abortion in women who choose to chew and eat the herb. The essential oil does not distill out this compound that increases the acetylcholine. Studies have shown that there have been women who have suffered miscarriage from overuse of rue oil. But let's put that in perspective. When I say overuse, the study that I'm citing, the woman didn't know essential oils and ingested 210 milliliters. 210 milliliters of an essential oil. Okay, if you have the desire to drink 210 milliliters of an essential oil, please don't. The other essential oil studies have looked at where they've cut open a mouse belly or a rat belly, pulled the uterus out and placed it on top of the stomach, and then dropped rue oil on it, documented that it caused contractions in the uterus, and then said, must cause abortion. Well, yeah, if you were to pull a uterus of a rat out of it and drop cold water on it, I am willing to bet that it would start to contract. So I don't talk about always, and I don't talk about never. So if someone says, you're crazy, I've been using Rue my whole pregnancy, I say, okay, fine. I do think that it is reasonable advice to stay away from cascara. I do, if women are breastfeeding, they'll say, well, do essential oils get into the breast milk? Do the compounds in essential oils get into the breast milk? Well, yeah, they're tiny, tiny molecules that go across every cell membrane in your body, including into your brain. So they likely will pass into the breast milk. So it is up to you as an empowered mama to decide if that is what you want. The good thing is that all of these chemical structures that are inside essential oils are things that are very, very standard building blocks of hundreds of thousands of different naturally occurring compounds. So I've heard to avoid clary sage. Clary sage contains a lot of sclereol. As we know, sclereol is a phytoestrogen, and progesterone is the hormone of pregnancy. So you may choose to avoid that during that time. A lot of women love to use clary sage towards the end of their pregnancy. Jasmine is an absolute oil, so you would be exposed to a bit of the solvent, so I could see why maybe that would be a reasonable recommendation to limit the use. Peppermint, I'm conflicted on the data about peppermint because I am not fully convinced that peppermint can cause preterm labor. However, there are a lot of suggestions of that out there. Same thing with the wintergreen, as we talked about earlier. Just, if you're choosing to use it, know the signs and symptoms of bleeding, and you might choose to avoid it at times when you know that there will be the risk for bleeding, such as during the time of birth. So I don't give always and never advice. I just say it's up to you as an empowered inhabitant of your own body to decide what's right for you. Very cool. People sharing some personal experiences. Okay. I saw somebody asked about sulfurzyme. Sulfurzyme is one of those supplements that I consider an everyday essential. I think every person in Young Living should be taking sulfurzyme every day. And I've been out of it for 2 weeks and I'm starting to really, really feel it. Sulfurzyme is fantastic. It contains MSM. MSM is a sulfur donor in the body. And why is that important? It's important because there's a molecule in the body called glutathione. I'll type it here just so everybody gets it. So there's a molecule in the body called glutathione. And glutathione is your number one detoxifying agent. What it does is it goes and it finds fatty toxins in your body and sticks to them, makes them water soluble so that then you pee or poop them out. So you need glutathione to get rid of toxins from your body. Sitting at the center of that glutathione molecule is a large sulfur atom. So when you use things like MSM, you are donating sulfur to your body. This is not a digestive enzyme, despite what the name hints to. It is not a digestive enzyme. It's not going to help you break down food. It's actually going to help you build the molecule that helps you to detoxify. So I think I have pretty well hit all of those. So if anybody has any final questions, we've got about 5 more minutes. And I'd be happy to address anything that you have, just some final thoughts.
Lindsey, we did have someone ask the other day about lavender. Their doctor told them not to use it because it has an estrogenic effect. Or I don't know if that's the word she uses, but and so I was just wondering if you could adjust that.
Mm-hmm. Hold, please. Again, this is a study that makes me pull my hair out. So the article that he is referencing was an article that was published that said that lavender causes breast swelling in young boys and that it can impact cause preterm puberty, increase estrogenic effects. Okay, but here's the thing. The Journal of Reproductive Toxicology published a counter response to that called Lack of Evidence That Essential Oils Affect Puberty. Here's the thing. What it said was the authors they cited 3 case reports that were said to link lavender and tea tree oil to gynecomastia or breast swelling. And they attributed that to the fact that it had xenoestrogenic effects. So xeno means foreign and estrogenic. Estro means estrogen. Ic means it mimics. So these are foreign estrogen mimickers. Problem with said study is that they didn't account for anything else that also has xenoestrogenic effects, such as plastics, pesticides, herbicides. They also purchased their Lavandula officinalis from a chemical company, not an essential oil company. Then they diluted it with DMSO, which is known to modulate both estrogens and androgens. Then they put it in plastic polystyrene plates that are also known to mimic estrogens and androgens. Then they chose to do a cell culture to demonstrate the cellular proliferation, because what they wanted to show, or what they shouldn't want to show it, but they said what they were demonstrating was that it causes gynecomastia. And so if you're going to cause breast swelling, you have to get more cells. The key way that you look at estrogenic effects of any chemical is the best possible way is called a uterotropic assay. This determines if the lining of the uterus grows in response to a chemical. They didn't do that. They did a less than gold standard test called a cell culture, where they just looked at it. So they themselves, at the end of the article, said that their research was inconclusive and needed more research to verify it. Because they only looked at 3 case reports, and none of them were using straight essential oils. They were all using shower gels, etc., that contained essential oils. So in my professional opinion, and I'll post you the link to the blog post I wrote about this, in my professional opinion, it doesn't carry credence to say that it causes breast swelling. And it boggles my mind. Not only did the Journal of Reproductive Toxicology, sorry, I got all excited. Not only did the Journal of Reproductive Toxicology, my oils are all the way over there, publish this, but there were also multiple other responses saying that this article is bupkis and that it shouldn't be used as a way to either promote or defend lavender oil for its estrogenic effects. Don't use it. So, all right, everybody, we are almost out of time. So oh shoot, I sent that to everybody privately. I'll send it again, or send it privately. There's that article that I wrote about these articles that they're citing. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. If you're not already, please do follow me, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Over the month of December, I'm going to be doing lots of cool giveaways, and so I would look forward to seeing all of you. It's at The Pharmacist ALA on Instagram, Twitter, and then all of my Facebook Lives that I generally do every Monday at 5 are posted over on YouTube. And then if you like to Snapchat, hit me up. So thanks, Becky, for inviting me, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Welcome.